Hey everyone, this is Chala Dinkoy. Welcome to another edition of Tuesday Tea Time with Chala. Of course, I am the CEO and founder of the Repositioning Expert, which I forgot to say. And I'm so thrilled to be here with another Tuesday Tea Time. And the topic today is fears. Fears. 3 fears to tap into in your marketing. Now, why am I so crazy about fears? Let me just take a sip from my fancy double shelled glass that never heats or cools my hand. So a 2017 UC Berkeley study showed that people's decisions and judgments of negative things happening, of unlikely negative things happening, disproportionately swayed their purchasing decision. So another statistic that I always talk about in every presentation is that 70% of humans purchase based on solving a problem, a pain. But this actually delves further into how they imagine really highly improbable but very serious disasters when they're purchasing. And it is overweighted and improportionate, and they're negative events that they're thinking of when they're making the purchasing decision. So it's really important for you to base all of your marketing on fear language, very specific to them, to whoever you're targeting, whatever actually happens in terms of, what in that industry, what people are afraid of, that actually happens, which is part of what we do when we give the statistics around the fear. And also potential, like it doesn't have to be an actualized fear for it to be a very big fear. So if 9 out of 10 of this kind of buyer is afraid of the economy going bust, for example, you would quote that. It's not that it has happened, but it's that 9 out of 10 are actually afraid of it. That's their biggest fear. So these are things that we research and delve into and dive into when we're thinking of what to say in our marketing, what to say in our sales outreach, because your DNA is geared to look for danger, right? And so that's why it recognizes danger, and it's always afraid. And it's always afraid because it wants to protect. So what are some of the ways that you can do this, right? I wanted to give you 3 ways and 3 ideas and avenues of sort of focusing in on this fear. So one of the things that you could focus on in your marketing messaging is extreme and unlikely events. So because psychologically, I just read to you about that 2017 research, is that's what that's overwhelmingly weighing people's decisions. And an example, there was a really good example that I read about. The new iPhone is coming out. I'm an iPhone junkie. Used to be a BlackBerry junkie in the day, if you even were alive when that was happening. But so the iPhone 14 Pro is coming out, and it has like 3 big features, and they're all based on fear. So one is called the lockdown mode. So apparently that's if you're under cyber attack, you can put it onto lockdown mode. And that's a big fear for people and for businesses. Another new feature they have is called it's the emergency SOS satellite. So let's say you're like walking or hiking and there's no signal. It's for you to call out into the emergency. And I think the earlier versions have it too, but maybe the coverage has improved or increased because they're listing it as a new feature for the 14. And then there's my Apple Watch actually has this. It's the walking steadiness. It's called the walking steadiness feature, and it tells you the risk of falling. And for example, this one, which is the Apple 7, and this is not a tech show, by the way. I am not qualified to give you tech advice, but it's just cool little things that I know, and it's all about marketing, right? The Apple Watch can tell when you've fallen. And I was like, well, how do they know? And so they've done the research of being able to, it can feel what angle you're at. So I'm guessing that some of those features are in the new iPhone 14 Pro. So, what does this mean for you and your messaging? Obviously, the iPhone 14 is geared to the mass public, so it's a B2C message. But what I wanted to do is how would it apply to B2B is cyber attack, for example. Again, whatever your topic is, if you can look at who your target is, and of course, I want you to pick a very cohesive industry or interest group. So I want you to look at, okay, what is their awfulizing? What is their catastrophe? The other ones that I've been hearing about is economic collapse, recession. I swear in every newsletter that I'm getting, it's all about recession, right? The other is less timely, but it's always existent, is largest client leaving. So imagine sending an email with that title. Imagine I've just been pitching all morning to New Orleans TV stations, to the executive producers, to the EPs for the news channels all over New Orleans, because I'm going to be there at the end of the month, and I want to make sure that I can get a segment. So what have I been talking about is I'm talking about, their biggest problem, like can't find interesting topics for the show. And I'm talking about what's relevant to their target market, which is, the morning audience, which is the housewives and the old people and the seniors and the young moms. So it's all about using the fears to get into their inbox, to get into their mind, to get into their consideration set. So that's what I would do, is remember, extreme and unlikely events is number one. Number two is using the fear of competition. So using their fear of stacking against the competition. So here's what some of your messaging could look like is, how do you stack up? You could even do, scores of stacking up, depending on what business you're in, right? I mean, this is completely applicable to B2B. What are they doing better? I've known clients who've gotten into meetings with impossible to get into meetings buyers by compiling reports of what their competitors are doing. So competitive fear is always in businesses. So if you are trying to get to influence, to get into the meeting room with a buyer, talk about their fears, concentrate on their fears around their competition. You can compile messaging and or data and or content around how are they different. How do you? It's again that how do you stack up? Some clients who've done, for example, web development, web design. They do this all the time. They do they take you through and give you a score, and then, any kind of assessment would be able to let you stack up against the competition. And so, yeah, your campaign could literally be, are you as good? Are you as good as your competitors? Now, you could even take it to the next level. And if there's really big competition, like if almost like there's two big players or three big players in the market, you could literally use that in your marketing to say, are you as good as X? This is really amazing way to get into their fear, get into their minds, get into their radar. Remember, the DNA is constantly picking up danger. Okay, so the third and last fear that I'm going to talk about, and I'm sure there's a whole bunch of fears that I haven't even tapped into and categorized for you, but the top three that I could think of when I thought about, fear-based messaging is the FOMO, which is the fear of missing out. So that's not just a B2B thing. That's not a business owner thing, but it's literally like everybody. And thanks to social media, now everybody thinks everybody's living a certain lifestyle because they can show themselves living a certain lifestyle. And so perceptions are highly skewed. And so this whole verbiage around FOMO has come out, fear of missing out. Like, oh, I didn't go to that party that everybody else was invited to. I didn't go to that concert. I don't have that kind of car, kind of thing. Now, how do you use this to your advantage in messaging for businesses in B2B marketing? So one of the ways that you can approach them is, to let them know that everybody else is doing this. And for example, are you doing enough social media or marketing? It could even be, are you doing enough marketing? It depends on if you're selling marketing. And maybe that's a fear that they always have in their background. So one of the things that my clients and I do when we're doing the research is where we're finding out about these pains. We're finding out about all the things that are in their mind that's keeping them from sleeping at night, which is like a cliche, such a cliche. But let me tell you, it happens. I'm up quite often to thinking about these things about my business. So I know that other business owners and my clients are as well. Other ways to use FOMO is, did they make the most of that trend? So bring up the trend and ask them, did you make the most of that trend? And then if that's something that you help them with, then they're going to ask for your help or be interested in reading your message about, well, in which way could we have made the most of that? Another way is there a new legislation that we can protect ourselves from? So the fear of missing out, like, are we missing out on this new legislation that's either going to help us or hurt us? If you're the canary in the mine, if you're the person who's telling them about, are you missing out on this? Not only are you going to look like you know what you're talking about, you're going to look like you're specialized, you're going to look like you can help them, and you're going to build instant credibility with that messaging. One of my clients actually has built an executive roundtable topic around a new legislation and has targeted those affected specifically by that legislation. And the calling card, literally, the calling script is, are you worried about this legislation? And the title of the talk is, are you worried about this legislation? So it is so timely, and it is such an amazing tool for you to get doors to open. So the campaign could be, are you ready for bill whatever, X 300, whatever. So those are some of the ways that you can base your marketing on fear. I know you're going to call it fear mongering, but it works. And it works because psychologically, that's how people are geared. And I don't think that's going to change. I have read books from 100 years ago written by branding, gurus and positioning gurus. And it hasn't changed because human psychology hasn't changed. Yes, the ways in which we consume information has changed. Maybe some of the channels have changed, but the basic human decision making, unfortunately, hasn't changed in hundreds and hundreds of years. So why not make the most of it? Tap into those fears, use them. First of all, get to know what those fears are, and then use them in your messaging. Because if you're just going to blanket everyone and use generic messaging and use generic fears that can hold for way too many people, it's not going to set you apart. It's not going to set your brand or your message apart, and it's not going to get you into the room. So that's what I want for you. I'm so happy to talk to anyone who wants to talk about their fears, hopefully about marketing. And I will keep you abreast of what is happening for my plans in New Orleans. Next week, I'm going to New Orleans. Next month, I'm going to New Orleans and DC and Washington. It's going to be an amazing month. November is going to come and go like this, and then it's going to be Christmas. So I am so looking forward to it. All the best, everyone. We'll see you next Tuesday. Take care.